You know, the sexual assault allegations against the only real conservative presidential candidate, or shall I say, I think the best one, Herman Cain, has been obsessing us. But we can't let ourselves forget about all the other problems, including the radical communist Occupy protesters around the nation. Joining us here on the Savage Nation to talk about this threat to our civil order is John Payne, a writer for the American Conservative. John Payne, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here.
So you've been to these protests, and what did you see there? Tell me what you think about the street communists. These are not peace-loving people.
Well, when I first went, I haven't been to a lot of the protests, but I just happened to be in Manhattan at the time that, sort of around the time that it kicked off, and so I decided to go down there. And I made two separate trips, and the first time I went down there, I was sort of already convinced that it was going to be, as I call just the latest banshee cry of the radical left, and there's certainly a lot of truth to that. I remember when I was leaving the protest for the first night, I walked up Broadway and encountered a huge throng of protesters walking down to join the demonstration, and there was a guy carrying a sign that says, "Occupy everything, because you already know that you own everything." And that struck me as incredibly crazy. And even I didn't write about this guy, but there was another guy behind him who was just screaming, "You are the 99% at me and all my friends." And that wasn't exactly something that was convincing us that we should go out and join them when he was screaming it in my face. But, there are other people who are a bit more reasonable. I went back a second time, and, there's certainly all the drum circles and what one of my friends described as all the worst aspects of a hippie festival without the drugs. But I talked to some other people, and I disagreed with a lot of their political solutions. They want more regulation, want higher taxes, and I oppose those sorts of things. But they weren't just crazy radicals that want to, completely socialize the country. So some of these people are just trying to assert a modicum of control over institutions that they think are running roughshod over their lives. And I can sympathize with those goals, but I think they're going about it the wrong way in their policy solutions.
Compare and contrast the Occupy street rabble with the Tea Party.
Well, I think there's more similarity there than a lot of people recognize. Certainly, the Occupy Wall Street protesters are younger, more left-wing. The Tea Party protesters are older, more right-wing. But I do think there is some overlap there. I've seen a Venn diagram floating around Facebook that shows the Tea Party protesters wanting lower spending and lower taxes, and the Occupy Wall Street protesters wanting more spending and higher taxes. But the one thing that they do seem to agree upon is that the government shouldn't be giving billions upon billions of dollars to the wealthiest corporations. So I think there's some common ground there, and maybe we can get back to if we can harness that, maybe we can get back to a more truly free market system where we have privatized risks and privatized losses and privatized success, as opposed to privatized profits and socialized losses. But that said, I think that there's certainly a bit more of a do-it-yourself attitude among the Occupy Wall Street protesters. I mean, they don't tend to go out and get permits. The Tea Party protesters have usually been very scrupulous about that, and I think that's maybe led to more clashes with the police. That said, though, this country was founded on groups of people that certainly did not wait for permits to go out and assert their right to protest. So I'm still somewhat sympathetic to both sides in this. I think this country has gone so far off the tracks that anyone who's willing to challenge the status quo deserves to be heard.
What do you mean when you say that the Wall Street protesters share the Tea Party's illusions? What do you mean illusions?
Well, I think part of the problem with both these protests is that neither one recognizes how bad a situation we're really in. So, if you look at polls of the Tea Party protesters, even they oppose substantial cuts to the big entitlements like Medicare and Social Security. And, the Occupy Wall Street protesters think that we can solve all our problems just by taxing the richest 1% a little bit more. Well, I think we're in for a lot rougher times than that. If you look at the explosion in entitlement spending that's about to come down the line, and the economy is continuing to struggle, something has got to give in this country, in our political system, and this is just basic facts. We're either going to have to raise taxes a great deal to such an extent that it would cripple the economy, or we're going to have to cut government spending in massive proportions on both entitlements, basically across the board. And so I don't think either of these groups have really dealt with that. I think they're kind of both engaging in convenient scapegoating. The Tea Party protesters are often just saying, "Oh, we can cut out earmark spending." Well, that's a very small percentage of spending. The Occupy Wall Street protesters are saying, "Oh, we can just tax the 1% more." Well, rich as they may be, that's not going to account for a whole lot of money in the long run. Certainly not enough to finance all the entitlement spending that we're on the hook for. So that's the basic idea.
So I guess you and I both think the goal of these protesters is not what they say it is. What do you think it is?
I think it varies. I think this is the Occupy Wall Street movement is certainly not. There's no main organization that I saw, and so I think there's a lot of different goals. Certainly, there are your outright communists out there. I've seen them. I saw a video on YouTube the other day of a guy who is a former Soviet citizen arguing with some of these Workers' World Party people. That they're just saying that, oh, North Korea is great and all this, and that's crazy. And they're certainly out there. I encountered several of them when I was at Wall Street myself, and so they're out there. But there's also people that are quite a bit more sensible than that. People that, they're certainly, for the most part, on the left. They're liberals. They want more regulation of Wall Street banks. I don't think most of them are terribly well-versed in economics, but they have a sense that the financial institutions have sort of run amok, and there's some truth to that, but I disagree with what their end goals, which are most of the stuff I heard was ending corporate personhood, raising corporate taxes. Now, they don't realize that if you end corporate personhood, there's not going to be a corporation that you can tax, but nonetheless, they say both those things at the same time. And the re-implementation of Glass-Steagall, which is a regulation that would separate investment and commercial banking. And so those are the things that I heard most commonly when I asked for specific policy proposals. And increased taxes on the wealthy as well. Another big popular one is getting rid of student loan debt, which is is not exactly something that is going to benefit the poorest Americans. It's certainly another middle class sop to the middle class and upper classes. So it's sort of funny to see people out there identifying with the downtrodden when they have a college education. You're not exactly some of the worst off in the world when you're college educated in the United States. But so those are, I think, are the biggest goals. And again, I think there's I understand where some of these people are coming from, but I don't think that most of those are good policy ideas.
At the end of the day, do you believe, as I will, that nothing will come from these protests?
That's a good question, and I think it's often very difficult to play prognosticator, and it almost always makes you look like a fool. But at the peril of that, I'll go ahead and say that I think that they will probably energize the Democratic base for the 2012 elections, but maybe not in ways that people expect. I think that a lot of these people are going to be very politically active, but I think that actually the Democratic Party and Obama may suffer because of this, because there's not a whole lot of sympathy for a lot of Democrats or Obama at these rallies. People are very mad, and they don't think that they're being represented by the people that they even voted for. And so in many ways, I think this is actually sort of similar to the Tea Party, except a left-wing version of it. So you might see more people more Democrats going rogue on their party. And so I think what you might see is a more liberal Democratic Party because of this, just as I think the Tea Party has moved the Republican Party to a more conservative stance. So that could make things more interesting politically down the road, but we'll have to see.
John Payne, thanks for joining us today on the Savage Nation.
Hey, it was great talking to you, Michael. Thank you a lot for having me.